She was the village outcast. They mocked her clothes, her silence, and her poverty. But beneath the rags, Zainab carried a crown that no one could see. They were laughing at a queen.
Every morning, before the first rooster crowed, 18-year-old Zainab was already awake. She would gather dry firewood behind the small mud hut she shared with her blind grandmother, Nana Amina, before lighting a charcoal fire. As the smoke rose into the cool dawn, she carefully arranged fresh ears of corn over the glowing coals. The smell drifted across the village, but instead of kindness, it attracted whispers. Many believed the young woman carried a curse because misfortune had followed her since childhood. Her parents had disappeared during a fierce tribal war, leaving only an old woman to raise her. Yet despite the cruel words, Zainab greeted everyone with a gentle smile. She believed that bitterness only made heavy burdens harder to carry. By sunrise, she balanced a woven basket filled with roasted corn on her head and walked through the busy market. Some customers bought from her because the corn was sweet, but others mocked her appearance and humble clothes. A group of village girls laughed loudly as she passed, claiming no respectable family would ever welcome a girl born under such unlucky circumstances. Zainab lowered her eyes and continued walking without answering. When she returned home that evening with only a few coins, Nana Amina held her hands and reminded her that true worth could never be measured by wealth or people's opinions. Zainab smiled, though deep inside she wondered if life would ever change. Unknown to both of them, destiny had already begun moving quietly toward their forgotten village. Although age had weakened Nana Amina's body and blindness had stolen her sight, her memory remained sharp. Every night after supper, she asked Zainab to describe the stars, the moon, and the shape of the clouds, imagining the beauty she could no longer see. Zainab loved those peaceful conversations because they were the only moments when the pain of the villagers' insults seemed far away. Still, Nana Amina often paused in the middle of a story, as though hiding something too painful to reveal. She would gently touch the unusual crescent-shaped birthmark on Zainab's left wrist before quietly changing the subject. One evening, heavy rain forced them indoors earlier than usual. Thunder shook the tiny hut, while Nana Amina searched beneath her sleeping mat. She removed a small cloth bundle tied with faded rope and held it tightly without opening it. Tears slipped down her cheeks as she whispered that if anything ever happened to her, Zainab must protect the bundle with her life. She refused to explain what was inside or where it had come from. Though confused, Zainab promised to obey. Outside, lightning flashed across the sky, illuminating the lonely hut for a brief moment. Neither of them noticed a mysterious traveler standing beneath a nearby tree, watching the house with unusual interest before quietly disappearing into the darkness. The next market day was busier than usual because traders had arrived from neighboring villages, hoping to earn enough money to buy medicine for Nana Amina's aching joints. Zainab roasted extra corn before sunrise. She prayed silently that customers would be generous. For a while, business went well until the village chief's spoiled daughter, Sadeh, arrived with her wealthy friends. They surrounded Zainab's small stand, laughing loudly enough for everyone nearby to hear. Saad mocked her patched dress, calling her the Queen of Poverty, while her friends clapped and repeated the insult. Several customers walked away, unwilling to become part of the uncomfortable scene. Zainab felt tears burning behind her eyes, but refused to cry in front of them. She quietly packed her remaining corn and thanked the few loyal customers who stayed behind. As she walked home, an elderly stranger stopped her and bought every remaining ear of roasted corn. He smiled kindly and said that those who endured hardship with grace often carried destinies greater than kings could imagine. Before she could ask his name, the old man disappeared into the crowd. His strange words echoed in her heart throughout the journey home. For the first time in many years, Zainab allowed herself to wonder whether her life might hold a purpose far beyond the boundaries of her little village. Several days later, the sound of royal drums echoed across the surrounding hills. Excited children ran through the streets, announcing that a grand festival would soon be held in the neighboring kingdom. The celebration marked 20 years of King Bashir's peaceful reign, and every nearby village was invited to attend. Traders, dancers, musicians, and craftsmen prepared eagerly for the journey. Even the village elders spoke of the festival with excitement, hoping to gain favor through trade and entertainment. Zainab listened quietly while roasting corn, believing such celebrations belonged only to wealthy families. That evening, the village head announced that every trader could attend the festival without paying taxes, hoping to encourage business. Nana Amina gently urged Zainab to go, insisting that the larger crowd might help them earn enough money to survive the coming dry season. Although nervous about leaving home, Zainab agreed. As she packed fresh baskets and prepared extra charcoal, Nana Amina once again touched the birthmark on her wrist. A deep sadness settled over the old woman's face, but she hid it behind a warm smile. Somewhere beyond the village, King Bashir was also preparing for the same festival, unaware that the answer to the greatest sorrow of his life was about to cross his path. Before dawn, dozens of villagers gathered at the dusty road leading toward the royal capital. Some carried woven baskets filled with vegetables, while others transported handmade cloth, pottery, and carved wooden tools. Zainab carefully balanced her roasted corn on her head and walked beside Nana Amina until they reached the edge of the village. Since the old woman could not make the long journey, she embraced her granddaughter tightly and prayed for divine protection. Before letting go, she secretly slipped the mysterious cloth bundle into Zainab's travel bag, reminding her never to lose it under any circumstance. The road to the capital stretched through forests, rivers, and open fields alive with birdsong. As the travelers drew closer to the magnificent city walls, Zainab's eyes widened in amazement. She had never seen such grand buildings or so many beautifully dressed people gathered in one place. The festival banners fluttered above the streets, while royal guards stood proudly at every entrance. Hidden among the crowds were nobles, foreign visitors, and one aging king whose heart still ached for the daughter stolen from him during the chaos of a tribal war 18 years earlier. Fate had finally brought them to the same city, but neither knew that one unexpected meeting would change countless lives forever. The royal capital overflowed with excitement as merchants, performers, and visitors filled every street. Brightly colored banners fluttered above the market square, while musicians entertained the growing crowds with drums and flutes. Zainab found a small corner near the festival entrance where she arranged her roasted corn neatly, hoping the delicious aroma would attract customers. Although she had never seen such a magnificent city, she remained humble and focused on earning enough money to care for Nana Amina. Throughout the morning, many travelers stopped to buy from her, praising the rich flavor of her corn. Their kindness gave her hope that perhaps life beyond her village was not as cruel as she had imagined. Not everyone welcomed her presence. A few wealthy merchants complained that poorly dressed village girl was attracting customers away from their expensive stalls. They whispered insults and laughed whenever she greeted a passerby. Zainab ignored them, remembering her grandmother's advice to answer hatred with patience. As the afternoon sun climbed higher, a royal procession entered the square. Soldiers marched proudly while nobles rode on decorated horses. Among them traveled King Bashir, who smiled warmly at his people, unaware that destiny was quietly waiting only a few steps away. King Bashir accepted the cheers of the crowd with grace, yet a hidden sadness remained in his heart. 18 years had passed since a violent tribal war had torn through the kingdom. During the chaos, his infant daughter disappeared without a trace, despite countless searches across neighboring lands. The queen had never recovered from the loss, and every royal celebration reminded them of the child who should have stood beside them. Although many believed the princess had died long ago, the king refused to surrender hope completely. Every year he silently prayed that one day fate would reveal the truth. After greeting village chiefs and foreign guests, King Bashir stepped away from the noisy celebration for a quiet walk through the market. He preferred meeting ordinary people without the formal barriers of the palace. As he passed rows of merchants, the sweet smell of roasted corn caught his attention. He noticed a young woman serving customers with remarkable kindness despite her simple appearance. There was something strangely familiar about her gentle smile, though he could not explain why. Before he could approach, royal advisors called him away to attend another ceremony. Zainab never realized the king himself had been only a few steps from her humble stall. Business continued well until several villagers from Zainab's hometown arrived at the festival. Instead of encouraging her, they mocked her before the city crowds. Sadeh loudly declared that Zainab brought bad luck wherever she went and warned people not to buy anything touched by a cursed girl. Curious strangers gathered around as the insults spread from one person to another. Some customers quickly walked away, fearing the gossip might be true. Zainab stood silently, her face burning with embarrassment while her carefully roasted corn remained unsold. An elderly woman who had watched everything unfold stepped forward and purchased several ears of corn. She scolded the mockers, reminding them that a person's character mattered far more than wealth or appearance. Ashamed, a few people returned to buy from Zainab, while others quietly apologized for believing the cruel rumors. Even so, the humiliation lingered in her heart. That evening, she sat alone beneath a large baobab tree near the palace gardens, wondering why kindness was often rewarded with suffering. Unseen by her, a palace guard observed the lonely girl and reported her unusual dignity to the king. As night settled over the capital, festival lanterns illuminated the streets with warm golden light. Remembering her grandmother's instructions, Zainab opened her travel bag to check the mysterious cloth bundle. Curiosity finally overcame her hesitation. Carefully untying the faded rope, she discovered an elegant baby blanket embroidered with the royal crest of the kingdom. Wrapped inside, it was a delicate gold bracelet bearing the same crescent-shaped design as the birthmark on her wrist. She stared at the objects in confusion, unable to understand how such precious treasures had come into her grandmother's possession. Before she could examine them further, approaching footsteps startled her. She quickly wrapped the bundle again and hid it inside her bag. A palace servant politely informed her that the king had announced a grand feast for all traders attending the festival. Every merchant was invited to the palace courtyard the following afternoon as a reward for supporting the celebration. Zainab gratefully accepted the invitation, believing it was simply an act of royal generosity. She had no idea that the small bundle she now carried held the first undeniable evidence of her forgotten past. The palace courtyard dazzled every visitor with its beauty. Long tables overflowed with food while musicians performed for honored guests from distant lands. Traders lined up to greet the king and receive small gifts of appreciation. Nervous yet grateful, Zainab joined the queue with hundreds of others. When her turn finally came, she bowed respectfully before King Bashir. As she extended both hands to receive a small pouch of silver coins, the sleeve of her dress slipped backward, revealing the crescent-shaped birthmark on her left wrist. The king froze instantly. His eyes widened, as memories buried for 18 painful years rushed back into his heart. He gently took Zainab's trembling hand and stared at the unusual mark without speaking. The royal physician, standing nearby, gasped in disbelief because he remembered delivering the princess on the day she was born. The courtyard fell silent as everyone watched the unexpected scene unfold. Confused whispers spread among the guests while the king struggled to steady his voice. At last he spoke words that left the entire gathering stunned. "Where did you get that birthmark? And who are your parents?" Zainab could only shake her head, unaware that her answer would change the fate of a kingdom forever. The king's question echoed across the silent courtyard. Hundreds of guests watched as Zainab struggled to find the right words. She lowered her eyes respectfully before explaining that she had never known her parents. Ever since she could remember, she had lived in a small village with her blind grandmother, Nana Amina, who had raised her with love despite their poverty. She admitted that the only unusual thing about her childhood was that her grandmother had always warned her to protect the crescent-shaped birthmark on her wrist. King Bashir listened carefully, his heart beating faster with every sentence. The royal physician exchanged anxious glances with the queen's old nurse, who had also recognized the rare mark. The king invited Zainab into the palace, instead of allowing her to return to the market. Though frightened by the sudden attention, she accepted the invitation. Inside a quiet chamber, the king gently asked whether she possessed anything from her childhood. At first, she hesitated, remembering Nana Amina's warning. Finally, believing honesty was the safest choice, she revealed the cloth bundle from her travel bag. The king's hands trembled as he stared at the faded fabric. Before opening it, he silently prayed that fate was not playing another cruel trick on a grieving father. The room fell completely silent as King Bashir slowly unfolded the old blanket. Although worn by time, the royal crest embroidered into its corners remained unmistakable. Every member of the royal household recognized the symbol immediately. The queen's nurse covered her mouth in shock, recalling how she had wrapped the infant princess in that very blanket moments after her birth. When the gold bracelet slipped onto the table, tears filled the king's eyes. The bracelet had been crafted by the royal jeweler as a gift for his newborn daughter, and had disappeared on the same night she was taken. Despite the remarkable discoveries, the king refused to announce anything without certainty. He understood that hope alone could not prove identity. He ordered trusted guards to travel quietly to Zainab's village and bring Nana Amina to the palace with the greatest respect. Meanwhile, Zainab was given a comfortable room where she could rest until the investigation was complete. Although everyone treated her kindly, confusion filled her heart. She had come to the capital hoping only to sell roasted corn. Now she found herself surrounded by royal servants who bowed politely whenever she entered a room. When the royal guards arrived at the village, many people feared someone had committed a terrible crime. The villagers gathered in the square as the captain respectfully approached Nana Amina's humble hut. He explained that King Bashir himself requested her presence at the palace. The old woman understood immediately why the summons had come. For years she had prayed that the truth would one day be revealed, yet she had also feared this very moment. With trembling hands, she packed a few simple belongings before accepting the king's invitation. As the carriage departed, curious villagers whispered among themselves. Sade confidently claimed the old woman must have deceived the kingdom and would surely be punished. Others agreed, laughing as the carriage disappeared down the dusty road. None of them imagined that the same blind grandmother they had ridiculed for years carried the greatest secret in the kingdom. During the long journey, Nana Amina prayed quietly for wisdom. She knew that before another sunrise, 18 years of silence would finally come to an end. Nana Amina arrived at the palace the following evening and was welcomed with unexpected kindness. Guided into the royal chamber, she immediately recognized King Bashir's voice, though many years had passed since they had last met. Kneeling before the throne, she apologized for keeping the truth hidden for so long. The king gently asked her to tell everything without fear. Taking a deep breath, she explained that during the tribal war, she had discovered a frightened soldier fleeing through the forest while carrying an infant wrapped in a royal blanket. Moments later, enemy warriors attacked him. Before dying, the loyal soldier begged Nana Amina to save the baby and never allow those hunting the princess to find her. Knowing the kingdom was still consumed by violence, Nana Amina had secretly raised the child as her own granddaughter. She never revealed the truth because she feared the enemies who had stolen the princess might still be searching for her. Tears streamed down the king's face as he listened. Every missing piece of the past finally fit together. Yet one troubling question remained unanswered. If loyal soldiers had hidden the princess for her safety, who had betrayed the royal family and revealed the child's location to their enemies? The following morning, the royal court gathered for an extraordinary meeting. Ministers, nobles, military commanders, and respected elders filled the grand hall as King Bashir presented the blanket, the bracelet, Nana Amina's testimony, and the royal physician's records describing the princess's unique crescent-shaped birthmark. After carefully examining every piece of evidence, the council unanimously reached its conclusion. There could no longer be any doubt. The young woman known throughout her village as Poor Zainab was, in truth, the long-lost Princess Zainab of the kingdom. The announcement spread through the palace like wildfire. Servants celebrated joyfully while the queen rushed into the hall with tears streaming down her face. She embraced Zainab tightly, unable to believe that the daughter she had mourned for 18 years was finally home. Overwhelmed by emotion, Zainab returned the embrace, though countless questions still filled her mind. Outside the palace, messengers prepared to carry the astonishing news across the kingdom. Far away in her village, the people who had mocked and rejected her had no idea that the girl they called cursed had just been declared the rightful princess. Their laughter was about to turn into disbelief. The royal messengers rode through the kingdom at sunrise, carrying sealed proclamations bearing the king's crest. By midday, one of them reached Zainab's village and gathered everyone in the central square. The villagers watched curiously as the messenger unrolled the scroll and announced that the long-lost Princess Zainab had been found after 18 years. He explained that the young woman who had recently attended the royal festival to sell roasted corn had been identified as the king's daughter through convincing evidence and the testimony of Nana Amina. A heavy silence fell over the crowd as the shocking truth settled into their hearts. Sade's face turned pale. She remembered every cruel word she had spoken to Zainab in the marketplace and during the festival. The same people who had mocked the poor girl now looked at one another in shame. Some covered their faces, while others quietly walked away, unable to bear the weight of their guilt. The village chief lowered his head, realizing that his community had judged an innocent young woman without compassion. The laughter that had once followed Zainab through the dusty streets disappeared, replaced by regret that could never erase the pain they had caused. Inside the royal palace, servants prepared elegant gowns and priceless jewelry for Princess Zainab. Although grateful for their kindness, she found it difficult to adjust to her new life. She missed the peaceful evenings in the small mud hut, the smell of roasting corn, and the gentle conversations she shared with Nana Amina. Every luxurious room reminded her that wealth could never replace the simple love that had sustained her through years of hardship. The queen patiently encouraged her daughter, assuring her that kindness and humility were the greatest qualities any ruler could possess. Later that day, Zainab requested permission to visit Nana Amina before attending any royal celebrations. The king gladly agreed. When she entered the comfortable chamber prepared for her grandmother, the old woman smiled as she recognized her footsteps. Zainab embraced her tightly and thanked her for every sacrifice she had made. Nana Amina explained that she had never regretted protecting the child entrusted to her, even when it meant enduring poverty and loneliness. Their emotional reunion touched everyone who witnessed it, reminding the palace that true family is built not only by blood, but also by unwavering love and sacrifice. While the kingdom celebrated the princess's return, not everyone welcomed the joyful news. Deep within the palace, Lord Karim, one of the king's oldest advisors, listened carefully as servants discussed the discovery. Although he hid his emotions behind a calm expression, fear quietly crept into his heart. 18 years earlier, he had secretly conspired with enemy forces during the tribal war, believing the disappearance of the infant princess would strengthen his influence over the kingdom. He had assumed the child was lost forever. Now her unexpected return threatened to expose crimes buried beneath years of silence. That evening, Lord Karim met secretly with 2 trusted followers in an abandoned watchtower outside the palace walls. He ordered them to discover exactly what Nana Amina had revealed to the king. If any surviving witness still remembered the events of the war, his carefully protected secret could unravel. As the conspirators disappeared into the darkness, storm clouds gathered above the capital. Unknown to Princess Zainab, the greatest danger she had ever faced was no longer poverty or ridicule. It now wore the fine robes of a respected nobleman. Determined to prepare his daughter for her future responsibilities, King Bashir arranged for Zainab to begin royal education immediately. Experienced tutors taught her the history of the kingdom, the laws governing the people, and the traditions preserved by generations of rulers. Although the lessons were challenging, Zainab listened with remarkable attention. She believed that if fate had truly chosen her to become a princess, she must learn to serve the people with wisdom rather than pride. Her humility impressed every teacher who worked with her. During one lesson, the elderly royal historian described the great tribal war that had nearly destroyed the kingdom. As Zainab listened, she realized how much suffering countless families had endured during those difficult years. Instead of feeling anger toward the past, she developed a deeper compassion for those who had lost loved ones, just as she had unknowingly lost her own parents for many years. Watching quietly from the doorway, King Bashir smiled with pride. His daughter possessed not only royal blood, but also the compassionate heart every great ruler needed. Late one evening, Nana Amina rested peacefully in her chamber while a maid organized her belongings. Hidden inside an old basket, the maid discovered a small leather pouch that had escaped everyone's attention. Believing it might contain family keepsakes, she brought it to Nana Amina, who suddenly became anxious. Inside the pouch lay a faded ring engraved with the emblem of the royal army. The moment she touched it, painful memories returned. She remembered removing the ring from the loyal soldier who had died protecting the infant princess. Before his final breath, he had whispered the name of the man who had betrayed the royal family. The old woman asked to see the king at once. Clutching the ring tightly, she explained that she had finally remembered the dying soldier's last words. The soldier had named the traitor responsible for revealing the princess's hiding place during the war. Before Nana Amina could speak the name aloud, a shadow moved silently outside the chamber window. Someone had been listening to every word. The hidden figure slipped away into the darkness, determined that the old woman's secret would never reach the king. Before dawn broke over the palace, a hooded figure crept through the silent corridors. Moving carefully to avoid the guards, the intruder approached Nana Amina's chamber with a small dagger hidden beneath a dark cloak. The old woman had finally remembered the name spoken by the dying soldier, and someone was determined to keep that secret buried forever. Just as the assassin reached for the door, Princess Zainab, unable to sleep, decided to visit her grandmother. She noticed the shadow at the entrance and immediately cried out for help. The assassin fled through the palace gardens, before the royal guards could capture him. Although he escaped, he dropped a finely crafted dagger, engraved with the crest of a senior royal advisor. Captain Idris, commander of the palace guards, carefully collected the weapon and presented it to King Bashir. The king ordered a secret investigation, fearing that someone within his own court had planned the attack. Zainab remained by Nana Amina's side throughout the night, realizing that the danger surrounding her family was far from over. The following morning, King Bashir personally visited Nana Amina's chamber. The old woman apologized for forgetting the name until the sight of the soldier's ring restored her memory. Speaking slowly, she recalled the dying soldier whispering, "Beware of Lord Karim. He serves the throne with one hand, and its enemies with the other." The king stood motionless as the words echoed through the room. Lord Karim had served faithfully for nearly 2 decades and had earned the trust of the entire kingdom. Rather than confronting the advisor immediately, King Bashir chose caution. He instructed Captain Idris to investigate every detail of Lord Karim's past without revealing the reason. Meanwhile, Lord Karim sensed that something had changed inside the palace. He noticed increased guard patrols and fewer invitations to private meetings with the king. Although no accusations had been made, he realized that time was running out. If the investigation uncovered the truth, everything he had built would collapse. Despite the growing tension within the palace, Princess Zainab continued her royal duties with quiet determination. She asked permission to visit the marketplace where ordinary people gathered each day. Instead of arriving in a grand carriage, she walked among the merchants with only a few guards nearby. She greeted traders warmly and purchased goods from struggling families, remembering her own days of selling roasted corn. Many people were surprised by her kindness, and stories of her humility spread quickly across the kingdom. An elderly widow approached Zainab with tears in her eyes, explaining that she had lost her home during the old tribal war and had never received assistance. The princess listened patiently before promising to review the woman's case personally. Watching from a distance, King Bashir smiled with pride. His daughter understood the hardships of the poor because she had lived among them. Unknown to the joyful crowd, one of Lord Karim's spies quietly observed every movement, searching for another opportunity to strike. Captain Idris began searching the palace archives for forgotten records from the years of the tribal war. Hidden inside an old storage room, he discovered sealed documents covered with dust. Among them was a list of royal officers assigned to protect the infant princess on the night she disappeared. Lord Karim's signature appeared beside several military orders that had never reached their intended commanders. The missing messages had redirected loyal soldiers away from the princess's escape route, leaving her vulnerable to enemy attackers. The captain quietly delivered the documents to King Bashir, who examined every page with growing disbelief. The evidence did not yet prove treason beyond doubt, but it revealed troubling inconsistencies that demanded answers. The king ordered the archives sealed until the investigation was complete. Unaware that his secrets were slowly coming to light, Lord Karim prepared one final desperate plan. If he could not erase the past, he would create enough chaos to escape justice forever. That evening, Queen Safia invited Zainab to the royal garden, where fragrant flowers bloomed beneath the moonlight. Mother and daughter walked together in peaceful silence. Before the queen finally spoke, she confessed that, for 18 years, she had blamed herself for failing to protect her child. Every birthday had reminded her of the daughter she believed she had lost forever. Holding Zainab's hands, the queen promised never to allow anyone to separate them again. Zainab embraced her mother with tears in her eyes. She assured the queen that, although the years apart could never be recovered, they still had a future to build together. Their heartfelt conversation strengthened the bond that war had stolen long ago. Yet as they returned to the palace, Captain Idris hurried toward them with alarming news. One of Lord Karim's trusted servants had disappeared during the night, taking several confidential records with him. The race to uncover the full truth had entered a dangerous new stage, and the kingdom stood on the edge of a confrontation that could change its future forever. Captain Idris wasted no time after learning that Lord Karim's trusted servant had disappeared. Before sunrise, royal guards searched the capital, questioning merchants, travelers, and innkeepers. Every city gate was placed under strict watch, but the servant had already slipped beyond the walls, disguised as a wandering trader. King Bashir feared the missing man carried documents that could expose the entire conspiracy or help Lord Karim escape justice. Determined to protect the kingdom, the king ordered discreet patrols along every road leading toward the neighboring provinces. Meanwhile, Lord Karim maintained a calm appearance inside the palace. He attended council meetings as though nothing had happened, carefully hiding the fear growing inside him. Princess Zainab noticed his unusually polite behavior and wondered why the advisor suddenly avoided looking directly at her. Although she had no proof of his guilt, something about him unsettled her heart. That evening, Captain Idris received word from a village blacksmith who claimed to have seen the missing servant traveling toward the old battlefield where the tribal war had ended many years before. Accompanied by a small group of trusted soldiers, Captain Idris rode to the abandoned battlefield. The once bloody land had become overgrown with tall grass and scattered trees, hiding the scars of war beneath peaceful silence. Following the blacksmith's directions, the guards discovered an abandoned watchtower. Inside, they found signs that someone had recently stayed there. Hidden beneath loose stones were burnt papers, broken wax seals, and a small wooden chest containing several royal letters that had escaped the fire. Though damaged, the surviving pages revealed secret payments made to unknown allies during the war. Among the recovered documents was a coded message bearing Lord Karim's personal seal. The captain carefully secured every piece of evidence before returning to the palace. As he rode through the night, he realized the conspiracy had involved far more people than anyone had imagined. Back in the capital, the missing servant watched from a nearby hillside, realizing the guards had discovered the hiding place. Knowing capture was only a matter of time, he decided to seek protection from the one man who had started everything, Lord Karim himself. While the investigation continued, Princess Zainab focused on serving the people. She asked her father for permission to hold weekly meetings where ordinary citizens could present their concerns directly to the royal family. King Bashir gladly agreed, believing the kingdom would benefit from hearing the voices of those often ignored. Farmers spoke of poor harvests, widows requested assistance, and craftsmen described the challenges facing their trades. Zainab listened patiently to every story, taking careful notes and promising fair solutions. During one meeting, an elderly farmer recognized Nana Amina among the royal guests. With tears in his eyes, he thanked her for raising the princess with honesty and compassion, despite living in poverty. His words moved everyone present. Zainab realized that her difficult childhood had become her greatest strength, allowing her to understand the struggles of her people in a way few royals ever could. As hope spread throughout the kingdom, Lord Karim grew increasingly desperate, knowing the beloved princess would become even harder to destroy. Late that night, the missing servant secretly returned to the palace through an old underground passage known only to a few trusted officials. He met Lord Karim inside a deserted storage chamber and demanded enough gold to flee the kingdom forever. The frightened servant confessed that Captain Idris had already recovered several important documents from the abandoned watchtower. Although the evidence was incomplete, he feared it would eventually expose everyone involved in the conspiracy. Lord Karim assured him that everything would be handled, speaking with calm confidence that concealed darker intentions. As the servant reached for the heavy bag of gold placed before him, Lord Karim suddenly drew a hidden dagger. Before the terrified man could react, he collapsed to the floor with a fatal wound. The advisor quietly collected the scattered coins, wiped the weapon clean, and disappeared into the darkness. At dawn, palace workers discovered the servant's body near the underground passage. Captain Idris immediately realized the murder had been committed to silence a dangerous witness, bringing the investigation one step closer to its mastermind. The shocking murder convinced King Bashir that the time for quiet investigation had ended. Summoning his most trusted ministers, he revealed the growing evidence against Lord Karim, including the engraved dagger, the recovered military orders, the coded letters, and Nana Amina's testimony. Although the council was stunned, they agreed that such serious accusations required a public trial before the royal court. No one, regardless of rank or influence, could stand above the law. Later that evening, Captain Idris received sealed orders to arrest Lord Karim at sunrise. Yet, as preparations quietly unfolded, an unknown messenger slipped out of the palace carrying news of the king's decision. Hidden beyond the city walls, Lord Karim's remaining allies gathered their horses and weapons. If their leader could not escape peacefully, they were prepared to fight for his freedom. Unaware of the approaching danger, Princess Zainab spent the evening praying for justice, never imagining that the coming day would test the courage of the entire royal family.